we need to think of a new advert for freebets.com.
Get your best betting offers from freebets.com.
Yeah, that'll do.
The following deals are now live.
This is Lewis Hart for Boxing Social in association with Empire Fight Store and Forged Irish Stout. Delighted as ever to always be joined with Big Mo. It is holiday season. It's very festive. Joined remotely on Zoom. How are we, mate? Though? How's things?
I'm good. Good to check in with you, man. I appreciate you taking some time. I'm enjoying this nice little break, not wearing suits and getting on planes and all that type of stuff. So it's nice to just kind of relax. How are you, bro?
Everything's all good, mate. All the better for speaking to you. I suppose we'll firstly touch on that. For yourself, where obviously based in America, MCing for a UK promotion, you're always on the planes, always flying. It's not just, you don't just do boxing, you do darts and you do sort of bare knuckle and other things as well. Is it nice to sort of have a little bit of a chill time, to just have some sort of downtime to yourself for a long time?
Yeah, it is. I mean, I work a full-time job. I'm the COO of Sports Thread Inc., which is a company that I helped start while I was in grad school. Got about 20 in-house employees and then a pretty big staff across the country spread out. So I do that full time. So even when I travel on these shows, I work another job when I'm in my hotel room, not doing fight week stuff. So it's nice for everything to kind of slow down. I think I took something like 30 international flights this year or something just crazy. And then, I do some bare knuckle in the States. So it's definitely been a busy year and a successful year, a big year for myself, my career, the brands that I work with. And now I'm just happy to just pause for a second and just, sleep in my own bed and relax and things like that. So it's good. It's good.
With you saying there about, most people would look at you as an MC and that's what most people know you for, but obviously you do a number of different things. Have you always liked that? Always liked having sort of trying all different sorts of stuff?
Yeah, I think that's a good question. I think, I was raised, not a big family, just grew up with my father. And, I always liked to be a part of different groups when I was younger. I never wanted to be, I played sports and I was an athlete and, played at a high level, but I never just wanted to be an athlete. I used to be in the band growing up. I played the saxophone and I loved, I'm a bit of a nerd. So I loved, that type of community. I love school. I love the academic piece. So I always liked being a part of different communities, different friend groups, etc. Now, the boxing community and people like yourself are just another subset of friends that I'm making. So I'm grateful to meet as many people as I get to meet and experience a lot of stuff. But I like to stay busy, like to do a lot of things. I've always been that way. And I'm not sure if that's ever going to change. That's a nice way of saying I'm a workaholic, but
yeah, definitely. Were you saying that you're a workaholic and being a business owner and dealing with high pressure situations? I would like to sort of take it back to, you played American football at a very high level, and with that comes a lot of pressure, a lot of sort of expectation on you. Those experiences that you had then, do you feel like that sort of shaped you now? Now you are sort of think you're in this part of your life that's very helped you.
Yeah, I think. I mean, I have a business mentor that's told me that you have to figure out ways to make your past apply to your future and take the lessons that you've learned and figure out ways to take whatever tidbit of information you can and apply it to whatever you're working on now. And so I definitely think that, playing football, it taught me competitiveness, certainly. And it also taught me to appreciate working in a team. And so it's fun. And being a part of the team is actually the thing that I enjoyed the most with playing football. Don't get me wrong, I miss the game and things like that, but I really miss, the team and the camaraderie and, traveling with them and the locker room and the banter and all the things that come with playing, that game in all sports. And so now it's fun taking that same approach, but with entertainment, because really I work in the entertainment side more than the sports side. And so I get to work with a team now, and my team, instead of being a football team, is now the boxer team or the Sky team. And so, working with people like Ben and Baz and Mason and Chris and, George and Scott and all the various members of Boxer. And then I get on the, on the Sky side, and I work with Johnny and Anna and Ed and James and various camera people and Andy and Matt. And I get to work with all these teams. And it's fun taking that same logic that I have when I was an athlete and applying it to what we do now. So it's cool. I really enjoy that part.
I did still want to keep on the topic of American football. I know we have spoken about having sort of things in all different pies and trying all different things. But when you was playing American football, you have the dreams of competing at a higher level, and I'm sure at that period that was your goal and that was your focus. What was that transition like to switch your focus onto other things when it came to MCing and business owning?
No, I mean, honestly, I'm not the type of person that will ever inflate my career or, say that I was some superstar and then I had something traumatic happen that stopped my career. When I was done, I was done. I had dreams of going to the NFL. Truthfully, I wasn't good enough, but I was good enough to play in college and, played Division I football, which was great. But when I was done, I was done. And truthfully, when I was in college and grad school, I made the joke before, but I was a better student than I was a football player, and I loved school. And so that was, I got to sink my teeth into school a lot. I was the first ever full-time MBA from my university, myself and my best friend, who I actually helped start in the business with. We wanted to get our MBAs as full-time students. They didn't have a master's program built, so we actually petitioned the school and kind of built our own program. And I got to compete in competitions in business school and things like that. So, even though, I had football, I also had other things that I focused on, same as, what I am now. But no, when I was done playing, I was done playing. The transition wasn't like, it wasn't crazy. It just, I was done. And in fact, if anything else, I was kind of burnt out at the end of it anyway. I was kind of happy to get on to the next phase of my life and things like that.
So you didn't really find it hard to walk away from that NFL dream?
No, honestly, I was good. I had injuries when I played. I blew out my shoulder and, things like that obviously didn't help the motivation. But no, when I was done, I was done. Spent 5 years playing in college, obviously played 4 in high school, played a little bit growing up. So I dedicated, 15 years of my life to that game. And when it was over, on to the next phase.
Definitely. Well, absolutely. We'll talk about the next phase. Looking back on this year in 2023 as a whole, your first full year MCing at Boxer, some massive shows that we can list off. Both the Smith Eubank fights, Billy Smith Okoli, Joshua Buatsi returning. Looking back on this year, been an exciting year for you?
Oh, it's probably been the best year of my life for a variety of reasons. But obviously being able to do what I do on the platform that I get to do it. I mean, this has all happened really fast. I mean, last year I was 26 years old and Boxer reached out to me and I was doing Shields Marshall, undisputed world title, sold out 02, 19,000 people, broadcasts on ESPN and Sky, millions of viewers. I did that when I was 26 years old. But I always knew I could do it. And so to roll into this year and, I had long conversations with Boxer and with Ben and the team, and I also with Sky, because I basically work for both companies. I just said, look, like I want to be a part of growing these shows. I want to be a part of, I want to play my role. I want to do more than just announce. That's why I do a lot of the fight week stuff and I do a lot of the media and all that type of thing. So I wanted to enhance the role and grow it. And, they believed in what I was doing. And then, it's been great. And this was my first full year. And, to do a couple pay-per-views and to do a stadium show and to do, world titles and British titles and European titles, and then to go to Paris and be a part of that show and to do some stuff in the Middle East. I mean, it's just been absolute. And then go to Poland, it's been an incredible year. I've been very fortunate to bring some attention to the role that I do and get some good media. And, I got to close out the year, being talked about in Sports Illustrated, and that was crazy. I mean, it's just been an amazing year. It's been a lot of work, but I'm thankful for every interaction that I've had. It's been so cool.
And just touching on what you said there, just MC and Shields Marshall at 26, and you're still, very young for when you compare yourself to other MCs. Touching on
Yeah.
working for Boxer, I think I'd speak for a lot of people when you look at their vision, and it is heavily focused around young people. You have Adam
Yeah.
Azim, main star who's 21. I mean, Ben Shalom's only 30. Do you
Yep.
feel like you sort of fit the bill with the vision of pushing the youth in a sense?
I do. And truthfully, even if it wasn't Boxer, I feel like that, my goal and my approach would fit in anywhere. But when you have Boxer and you have this new organization, I mean, people don't understand that Boxer, I mean, they basically started from scratch. I mean, yes, they had events and they were doing their own thing on a more local and regional level, but when they got the Sky deal and Matchroom obviously left Sky and Boxer had to rebuild their roster. So when you look at building a stable, if you have a long-term plan, then you build for the long term. And so Boxer and Sky, in my opinion, I'm not sure who would argue, probably has the best young roster of fighters. I mean, Adam Azim is 21, Vidal Riley's 27, Caroline Dubois mid-20s. You have, I mean, who am I forget? Who else am I? I mean, Lauren Price is younger, Karis Artingstall is younger. Ben Whitaker, obviously,
Whitaker, yeah.
so you look at this, roster and you look at the creative things that Boxer and Sky are doing. It's exciting times. And like I said, I like playing my role, and my role has kind of become this presenter, this personification of the Boxer brand. Obviously I do a lot of the media and the talking and the front facing stuff, and it's great. I'm excited. I believe in what Boxer's doing. I believe in what Sky's doing. They're well-ran organizations with a good plan, and I'm just happy to be on board.
And the experiences that you've had, do you ever, because you're doing so much all the time and you're constantly going, is there ever times where you do sit back and you think, I'm standing in the ring and I'm standing next to Chris Eubank Jr., I'm looking at Liam Smith, I'm with Clarissa Shields, and I'm at the Vitality Stadium announcing a Chris Billum Smith and Kody's coming out. And do you ever look back on these things, or is it just always constantly moving forward to the next thing?
I mean, I definitely am always moving forward to the next thing, to be honest. I'm nowhere near where I want to be, in my opinion. I have very, very high goals for myself set in my career. I want to try things in entertainment beyond just ring announcing. I want to grow, I want to help grow boxing. My ultimate goal is I want to take the role that I do, and I want to use it as a conduit to reach new groups of people. I want to help take boxing to different markets. I want to introduce it to new demographics of people. And I believe that my role naturally can do that. I introduced DJs on stage this year. I've done various events for, beyond boxing. And what that allows me to do is to take a small snapshot of my job and my career and introduce it to new concepts and new groups and demographics and psychographics of people. But I'm trying to train myself to live in the moment a little bit more, and to embrace what's going on now. I've definitely had a couple moments when that's happened, and I kind of lean back and I'm like, all right, like this is cool. This is an amazing, experience. I mean, I remember when Smith beat Eubank the first time in the upset and the arena was shaking, and then the rematch happened. And I remember, Chris's walkout so vividly. I remember looking over and just seeing Calla Sauerland sitting there and looking at everything and just taking it all in. And you look at Ben just kind of sit there and take it all in. And so, yeah, there's those moments where I can almost kind of lean back and be like, all right, this is pretty cool. I'm not gonna lie. Like, this is a pretty, I live a blessed life, and I'm very fortunate to have the experiences that I do. So sometimes I need to work on it more.
Yeah. I think everyone sort of talks about, especially when it is so busy, it is hard to appreciate everything because once Smith Eubank 2 is done, you look at the next thing, look at the other thing as well.
Yeah, no, and that's I remember you and I had this conversation. I remember, we were talking. I think it was in Bournemouth last weekend, and I was like, man, like, you live a cool life. This work allows us to do that. I mean, you got to go. You went to Saudi earlier this year.
Yeah, I did.
Like who does that, man? Who gets to do things like that? So I think it's important that, no matter how hard you push, and I push harder than 99% of the population, I go 100 miles an hour. It's important I've always used the analogy of that sometimes we're so close to the painting that it's hard to take a step back and really see everything that we've made because we're so up close every single day. So I need to take my own advice.
Definitely. Just before I list off certain topics that happened this year, one thing I did want to talk about with you is when it comes to MC, when it comes to announcing, everyone will always, think of the buffers, and I'm sure you've taken inspiration from them. But there's obviously, there's a lot of inspiration that can be taken of them. But is there an importance in you that, don't compare me to like the next Michael Buffer, the next Bruce Buffer? I'm going to be, the first Big Mo in a way.
That's you just hit it on the head. It's actually funny you mentioned this. I had a little interaction with the Buffers a couple weeks ago, actually, when that Sports Illustrated article came out, and the article in the Independent earlier this year kind of talked about the three of us as well, because I speak very highly of the Buffers. I think the Buffers are world class at what they do. I think that they are integral parts of combat sports. Bruce more so in the UFC, and Michael obviously more so in boxing. But they're icons in pulp culture. The Let's Get Ready to Rumble is a lot more than just boxing. So I actually got to interact with them, and they were gentlemen. But that's the big thing is I remember early on, I saw an interview where Bruce was talking about MCs, and he's like, whatever happens, like whoever is next, they need to do their own thing. They need to be original. Yeah. And originality for me is important. A lot of MCs aren't original. Like, I mean, think about how many catchphrases start with "It's time blank." Well, Bruce's catchphrase is "It's time," but every other MC is "It's time to fight." It's time to this. It's time like. So everything is there's just copycats throughout it all. So the big thing that I've at least attempted to do, and I think I've done a pretty good job of it, is be independent, be myself, have my own style, have my own presence, have my own phrases and things like that. And that's been an important facet of the career for me. So I think that originality is difficult. I think that a lot of people naturally copy because it's simpler. It's easier to copy someone than it is to be original. And that's why, for example, the Buffers believe in intellectual property highly, and they protect themselves. And I do too. And so, but no, being original is important. Being the first Big Mo is important. I mean, if you go to, my social media or my TikTok, every single video has some comment of next Michael Buffer, next Bruce Buffer. I got compared to them a lot. People thought I was their son. I'm not even joking.
Jeez.
And so I always respond like, thank you, but I want to be the first Big Mo, things like that. I want to be myself. And now the comparison is amazing. Thank you. That's a hell of a compliment, but I'm trying to be me.
Well, one way that you can be unique and different to the rest, I'll talk about, a couple things, a couple moments this year. First one being Joseph Parker versus Jack Massey right at the start of the year. Announcing Joseph Parker by his Samoan name. Not often, no. I think that's the first time it might have been done before, and correct me if I'm wrong. Seeing that must have been a special moment for Joseph, a special moment for you, and another one being Joshua Buatsi when he fought Pavel Stepien in May, announcing him by his African name. What was the motivation for you to do this?
That's a good question, and it's you brought that up, and that kind of resurfaced on social media a little bit ago, and that's obviously made the rounds, and I've gotten a lot of nice messages from the Polynesian community. Now, when I look at my social followers, like I have a massive contingent that are in New Zealand and in these islands because of social media and things like that. But what it was for me is I think it's important to remember that people's names are their identity, and introducing someone by their identity is really important. I remember when I started, I naturally have a decent interaction with these athletes because I was one. I wasn't a boxer, but I was a high performing athlete. I understand, the stresses that may be going on in your head. I understand that you're trying to psych yourself up or psych yourself down or whatever you're trying to do psychologically, and what training is like and things like that. So I've always had a good camaraderie with them. And so I'm always comfortable talking to them. And I ask them, how do you want to get introduced? How do you want to get introduced? And a lot of times fighters will go, it doesn't matter. And they'll just, they don't want to press for what they like. Some guys do. Some guys are very particular with what they want, but a lot of people are just dismissive. And I ask them, I go, no, like, this is my job to introduce you. We're all in this show together. All these people bought tickets to watch you, or at least to watch the card that you're on. How do you want to get introduced? So someone's identity is important to them. And truthfully, I never liked how people kind of have to abandon who they are culturally to fit some narrative. And Joseph Parker is a perfect example. Well, maybe not perfect example, but, you know, I introduced him by his chief name. You know, the name Joseph Parker that's not cultural to Polynesian people. It's just a name that he was given. And, you know, when I go through comment sections from that video and they talk about how, you know, it's hard for them to see their culture be represented because people don't want to pronounce the names right, or they don't want to call him by that name. Like, people don't understand that Joshua Buatsi isn't even how you pronounce it.
Yeah.
But they just sounded out and they just said, yeah, it's Joshua Buatsi, and they roll on with it. When in actuality, you ask him, he's like, no, it's pronounced Boache, but everyone does it wrong. That's unfortunate. To me, that's just someone was lazy. Someone didn't want to understand how it was said. And then it kind of just snowball effect from there. But what that leads to is now almost kind of the washing away of someone's culture. Now, if they want to go by a different name, that's one thing. But to just pronounce someone's name correctly and just have that be the conversation as it just goes on through, like I don't know. I'm not a fan of that personally. I think that's kind of just laziness on a lot of people and a lot of broadcasters. Like, you can take a couple minutes to ask how someone's name is pronounced and things like that. So that's important for me. And if I can represent their culture, even if it's for just a brief second, I believe that's an example of me at least trying to use my platform in a way that's constructive. So
definitely, I think probably fighters, especially Joshua and Joseph, they definitely would respect that a lot more, you doing that and actually taking the time and caring for it.
Yes. And I asked him, and I remember I asked Joshua Buatsi, and at this time I'd never even met him. This was back in Birmingham when he made his debut on Boxer. And I just said, hey man, like, you know, I know that you're from Ghana. I'm assuming you probably have a component of that culture that you may want represented. What's your name? He's like, yeah, actually, I'm going to have, you know, the flag on my shorts, and I'm going to have some of the colors involved. And he told me, he's like, you know, my full name is Joshua Sena Kwasi Boache. And I had seen him say that in an interview once before. And so that's kind of what tipped it off, because I remember he introduced himself as Joshua Sena Kwasi Boache. And I was like, all right, well, he did it for a reason. It's clearly, it has relevance and importance to him. So if that's the case, then I want to adhere to that also. So I just had the conversation with him. But no, I think it's just a respect thing. And it also makes for a great introduction if I'm being selfish. So
yeah, definitely. Absolutely. And just moving on. I feel like I may know the answer to this, but I'm going to ask it anyway. Looking back 2023, all the events that Boxer have had, what was one night for you where the energy was different? You know, this was one special night.
That's a good question. I mean, from 2023, because I will say my first Bournemouth show was electric, but that was 2022. Yeah. But from 2023, I mean, Smith Eubank 1 was insane. I mean, the second one was great too, but the first one, because, you know, obviously the fight had never happened, and this was, you know, Liam Smith's second show on Sky and Boxer, and Chris Eubank was back, and that was Chris's first fight after the initial Conor Benn negotiations kind of, you know, obviously the drug test came out, so this is Chris Eubank's first time back. So that energy all kind of mixed together, and the buildup was kind of, you know, there were some jabs being taken. Definitely. So when you factor all that in, I mean, Smith Eubank 1 was incredible. I mean, Bill Smith at Vitality was just insane. I mean, that was cool, because that was my first stadium one. So
I was going to say that to you about because I was there, and I remember when you announced, introducing the challenger Chris Smith, and his walkout comes on. That was a special walkout for you to stand in the ring and see that.
Well, because it's funny, because I did the walkthrough of the stadium the evening before, and I was actually with Chris, and you could just tell for him, like, what that meant. I mean, Chris is one of the first people I ever met here. I've been friends with Chris ever since. I value my friendship with Chris a lot. I'm friends with all the boxers, but Chris, he's the gentleman, and he is a gentleman. And he was talking about, you know, what it meant, and he went up and sat in the seat in the stadium that he used to sit at as a kid. And then now the next night he's selling 15,000 tickets sold out. That show sold out quick for a stadium. And this has been Bournemouth, and boxing is back in Bournemouth, and Kody took his belt on the road. And so you factor all that in, man. It was unbelievable. And so when that walkout happened, and I mean, it was at that moment where I was like, all right, I gotta turn up the heat a little bit.
Yeah.
This Bournemouth crowd is getting ready to go. And especially because the whole night there were some fights breaking out in the arena. You had Southampton fans and Portsmouth fans and Bournemouth fans. So when you factor all of that in together, that all created the atmosphere that we saw, which was just unbelievable.
Definitely. Well, going from the past now, looking into the future, we'll look a little bit into 2024. It kicks off in Liverpool. Natasha Jonas takes on Michaela Meyer, and then about 2 weeks later, we are back in London for Joshua Buatsi versus Dan Aziz. Excited for those two fights?
Oh yeah, I think those are great shows to kick off the year. Jonas Meyer, I think, is a fight that it's a damn good fight. It's a really, really good fight. I think that Natasha Jonas has been just proven that she's still got it. I think a lot of people wrote her off, and then she won 1 belt, and then 2 belts, and then 3 belts, and then 4 belts, and then British Boxer of the Year, and then all this stuff happened. Then we're like, oh my God, how much does Natasha have left, right?
Yeah.
And then there were talks about, the Clarissa Shields fight, and then all those types of things. And then I think the Michaela Meyer fight makes a lot of sense. I think it helps bring some American viewership too. It obviously brings Top Rank and, what they possess in America. So it's an important fight there. I think it's a great show. I love that it's in Liverpool. Natasha gets to fight really in front of her home fans. And I think the winner of that, it sets up some really interesting fights. I mean, I'm sitting here saying, all right, well, if Natasha beats Meyer and maybe Kody and Chantel do the trilogy, I mean, that potentially opens up a rematch with Katie Taylor, which I think will be great. That's UK versus that's Ireland versus versus England. It's rematch. It's Sky, DAZN, all that type of stuff. So who knows if something happens there. So there's a lot of. I mean, the female division is really interesting right now. I mean, we just saw Franchon Cruz win her belts back. Mm-hmm. So now, Savannah had beaten her, but then Savannah vacated because of the injury. So there's just so much stuff right now there. And then, we had to Buatsi Aziz, which is a banger. And I'm so happy that got kept on so quick. Obviously Dan's injury pushed that back. So I'm happy that that's getting on now. I think that you have massive fights in that division, massive fights. I mean,
definitely.
We forget that Callum Smith and Beterbiev are about to be fighting here soon. Those are kind of forgotten because they've been contracted to fight for months now. And, you look at people like Anthony Yard, who's still there, who maybe wants Buatsi. I mean, that's a definitely blockbuster. So it's 2 great shows to start the year. I'm excited.
Yeah, absolutely. And just as we close this interview off, sort of final thoughts as this interview wraps up and we wrap an end to 2023.
Man, great year. Lot of adversity on the Boxer side, but I think Boxer did a good job of navigating it as the best they could. I believe in what Boxer's trying to accomplish. I believe in what all the promotions are trying to accomplish. I mean, that's the one thing that I'm maybe not the biggest fan of is there's a big promoter rivalry, but there's also like fans feel like they have to have allegiance to some promoter, which is kind of strange to me, to be honest. I mean, in America, we don't really care who the promoter is. I mean, you could have gone to Spence Crawford and asked every person in the arena who's putting this show on, and I doubt a lot of them even knew it was PBC that was putting the show on. So so I don't like that side of it. It is interesting, don't get me wrong. I love the politics. I love the back and forth. It is entertaining, but I'm just happy to be a part of the industry in general. I think the industry does understand that it's going to take everyone to succeed. I think at this point now, it's safe to say that there's not going to be one promotion. That can't happen. There's too many. It's too big of an industry. Too many broadcasters want to be in it now. So I'm happy to be a part of a show that we're focusing on what we got to do. Boxer and Sky are focused on Boxer and Sky, and I'm focusing on developing my career and helping grow their shows. And I think it was a successful year for myself and for the brands that I work for. And now it's about really turning up the heat and stepping on the gas. When you have momentum, when you have motivation, it's important to not let up. It's important to just accelerate through that. And that's what I plan to do. Have some fun stuff geared up already for 2024. Have some new things that I'm going to be trying my hand at in the entertainment side, which is fun, which is exciting for me. And just about developing the industry. So I think boxing had a good year. I think that there were a lot of wins from the year. I think that there were big fights that were put on. There were big fights that were missed. So now I think in 2024, it's important for everyone to get back in and say, look, we got a lot of stuff left on the table that we can make. We have some ginormous fights that we can make. Let's figure out a way to get them done. Let's give the boxing public what they want. You know, we asked a lot of fans this year. We had fans have to subscribe to different platforms and different broadcasters and have different pay-per-view prices. And so we ask a lot of the boxing public, of the boxing fan. I think now as promotions and broadcasters, it's important that we think with the fans in mind. We make decisions focusing on them because they're the consumers of our product. And I think that if we develop an industry that's fan forward, that thinks in the best interest of the people that are consuming the product, in my opinion, that's how we're all going to succeed the best, and that's how we're all going to win. So hopefully as an industry we can do that. Absolutely. I may have too much youthful exuberance and maybe too much wishful thinking, and next week there's going to be a promoter rivalry and then maybe a fight breaks out. Who knows? But we're all here for the roller coaster together, and I'm just I'm honored to be a part of it, honored to meet friends like you. You've been a good friend of mine this year. We're road warriors. I mean, you don't fly, you have to drive and take the train, but it's been great, networking with you and talking with you and seeing your career grow within Boxing Social and without of it. So I'm just thankful for people like you, man. But let's have a good 2024.
Yeah, absolutely. I definitely think everyone would agree with what you're saying, man. And I was going to say, sort of on a personal level, this year it's been good to sort of get to know you, good to become friends with you. And I'm definitely sure I'll be seeing you in Liverpool, mate, and we'll be definitely having a good time there, mate. Thank you for taking time to speak to me.
Appreciate everyone. Appreciate everyone for listening. Thank you all to fans. Make sure you follow my man Lewis Hart on Boxing Social. Follow Boxing Social. Follow myself. Follow Boxer. Follow Sky. And I will see you in the new year. Merry Christmas. Happy holidays. Happy New Year. See you in 2024.
Definitely. Sign off for me, mate. Top man. Thank you.